And we're live.
Looks like it. What is going on, Alex? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I am super excited about today's show.
Should be fun one,
I
actually.
think it's going to be fun. I was super just blown away and speechless when I got to handle this knife and pen and mechanical pencil, and I was literally blown away. I'm honored that Dmytro agreed to come on the show, and let's bring him in and get this party started.
Bring him on.
Dmytro, how are you doing, sir? I know we talked earlier, but thank you again for coming and joining the show. We do appreciate that. I know your kid is in the background there trying to go to sleep, so we may hear some of that, but that's totally okay. Alex has kids that are also younger and in the house. I have kids that are older, they're out of the house, but I still vaguely remember those days of bedtime. So thanks for joining, and thank your wife for allowing you to join, because I know it's kind of nighttime and all of that. So we appreciate that.
It's all good. Absolutely. Thank you.
So yeah, like I said, let's just dive right into it. I mean, I was blown away with the knife that you sent me, and again, thank you. I can't say thank you enough for that. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into coming up with the idea to even make a knife.
Well, this was sort of just so my name is Dmytro. Nice to meet you, everyone. It's mechanical, sort of hands-on stuff has always interested me.
Mm-hmm.
So a knife, it was just another rendition of where I go with things. It's why not a knife kind of thing. That was the approach I took.
So do you carry a knife every day before you start making them, or no?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, or did you start as a knife collector, or?
No, I don't carry a knife. I don't collect knives. I guess I like knives. I can say that I like knives. My father-in-law, he's a lot more into knives. He always has a knife on him.
Okay.
But I'm not really into knives. I'm into mechanics. I'm into engines. I'm into CNC. I'm into machining. That's what I'm into.
Okay.
So
I'm even more impressed now, because what you came up with really was ergonomic. It, felt good in the hand. It worked well in the pocket. Like all of the things that you look for in a knife, you pretty much nailed.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, before making a knife, my question is where did you start with a CNC? Was it, if it was a knife making?
So
what made you buy one?
It was great question. My wife still asks me that.
EDC for fun. Welcome.
So it was, I think, so my wife got me my first lathe and a mill. It was like a Grizzly. It was like a budget one. It was a smaller one, but she was the one that got me that first. So, because I've always wanted one. I've never had the ability to have one,
right.
But I was always interested about that stuff. And then recently, we bought a house and all that, and I have space now. So my wife got me one.
Okay.
And that was where I started. And, it's a rabbit hole you go down.
So we can blame her, or we owe her all the thanks for starting you on this wonderful journey. Got it.
To some extent, yes. So it's like a rabbit hole at that point. You do something, then you see a video and someone else does, single point thread, and you're like, oh man, I want to do a single point thread. So you learn how to do that. You buy tooling to do that. And then it just escalates. And then you see some of these, amazing videos where people are machining on the CNC, and then we're like, why not? So one day I woke up and
Have you taken any classes?
No, I'm self-taught with this stuff. But yeah, it was it's fairly intuitive, I'd say. You just got to spend time doing it. If you want to do it, you'll get it done.
Right.
So I ended up getting I have a Tormac 1100 MX. That's my. I mean, that's what I could put in the garage. I don't think anything bigger than that would have fit in the garage. But yeah, and I've since taught myself to code, to design, to machine, and
how long ago was it that she got you your first stuff?
She got me the manual lathe and the mill, I want to say about 3 years ago. So that's when I just first started machining, learning about it. And then the CNC machine I got in April, like a year and a half ago, April.
Okay.
Yeah. So since then, I did a couple of other projects kind of here and there, but before I started designing the knife, but I sort of, probably a few months into this, I wanted to design a knife, and yeah, it just kind of took its own path, and renditions, modifications like that, this knife. But when we arrived at the knife that I sent you, there's been quite a bit of
trial and error ahead of time.
Evolution, exactly. It's
for sure.
So I have a question. So when you got into the CNC, did it start? I'm assuming it didn't start with knives. What was the first thing you started making?
It did not start with knives. So I made things like I made the little handle for the vise, for example. Like I'm machined that. I machined a drain out of PVC for my pool, the main drain of the pool, because the vacuum that I got wasn't clearing it. It was too dumb, so I had to make it a little bit more shallow, like things like that. So it's I don't know. I think I see it. I tell my wife this all the time. I think any good household needs a CNC machine. So
I think this comment, if I remember, is your father-in-law.
What are you talking about?
Comment here, 6K ROK. I think that might be your father-in-law saying his back still hurts from moving the lathe. Because he had commented about on one of the videos that he was in the club.
Yes.
And
yes.
So,
so the lathe, because it wasn't like huge. It was like I forgot the dimensions of it, but it weighs like 350 pounds. So it's hefty, but it's not like a full size lathe. So we actually we took it down into the basement. So that sits in the basement, and apparently that's gonna sit there now, because it was impossible to get down into the basement. Yes.
Yep, that's him. So thank you for joining, father-in-law. That's great.
So with that brilliant mind of yours, what do you do for a living?
And during the day, I do teeth. Dentistry. Dentistry is my day every day.
That's interesting. I'm also in the gun world. I don't know if there's a gun site, a red dot gun site that's made popular on the video games. It's like a circular type site with kind of like a flat piece that goes around. It's a brand called Seymour. I don't know if you ever heard of it. A lot of gun guys know, especially from the 90s and stuff like that. He is also a dentist who just randomly made this gun site and was actually one of the first guys to ever make a red dot. So yeah, dentists are pretty clever people. I gotta say. And it's funny because since the early 90s that he developed this red dot site, they still make them to this day. They haven't changed much, actually. So that's interesting. Very, very cool.
And here's a good question from EDC for Fun, Dennis. He's a good guy and friend of the channel. For someone who doesn't collect knives, how did you come up with the design and material choices? Great question.
Honestly, it was a little bit of research. I was trying to figure out what's the best steel out there, for example. I know Magna Cut. I make some knives with Magna Cut, some with M390. So I didn't want to... I just looked up what's the best what's the best engineered steel with. I have a Seymour site. Yeah, that's my father-in-law.
See, there you go. There
he's
you
into
go.
guns too. He's into guns too. I have some guns, but he's way more
Even
into it than I am.
Yeah.
And I know he knows it because he spelled it correctly. It's got an interesting
Okay.
spelling. Yeah, it's a C with more. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So what are we talking about?
So how you picked the materials in the design.
It was, again, I was just kind of was browsing, seeing what's the best out there, and I have rave reviews. I watched a couple of videos by the guy who designed MagnaCut.
Yeah.
I forgot his name, but I know
Larry something, I think, right?
Yeah, he's the knife steel nerd guy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I watched a few videos. It sounded promising, and I just bought a bunch of stock from Alpha Blade Supplies, right? Alpha Knife Supplies, After Blade Supplies, something like that.
Knife Supply, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as handles go, it was either carbon fiber. That was my, everything choice. And then the place Fat Carbon out of Larry and Thomas. Yes, exactly.
Larry,
Yeah. The place Fat Carbon out of was it Latvia or Lithuania or something like that?
Lithuania.
They had Lithuania. I mean, I looked at their inventory at what they offered, and I was just blown away. So I was like, why not? Like that gold camo that they have. Yes. That's my favorite. Yeah, or the black camo. They had, I think it's just great. And then everything else, it was sort of as exotic as I wanted to get. I've made some with Damascus titanium with different patterns. I've made some with crystalline titanium. I made some with just pure titanium, like a grade 5 titanium. So it was, but this is sort of, I don't know how the 35, what is it, V35N or something like that, how that behaves compared to MagnaCut. To me, that's a little bit like, so.
I think steel is a little bit of subjective. I have one knife with MagnaCut that I own, my RJ Martin. It just happened to be MagnaCut when I bought it. Like, I wasn't buying it specifically for any reason other than
that's a Fat Carbon scale, right? That's a Fat Carbon. Yeah.
Yeah, I got this in a trade, really, and I really wanted it. I didn't care what steel it was at that time. And I think that's, for most people, and I'm going to get some grief for this, I don't know that blade steel really matters, as long as you're using a premium steel, right? If you're using some junk, then of course, right? I mean, I have been very happy with this. It's super sharp, and it has stayed super sharp, and I use and carry this one a lot. It was actually in my pocket today, most of the day. I had something else a little bigger in my pocket for some of the day, but that one,
that's what she said.
Do stuff around the house and whatnot. That's one of the ones I grab because it's always sharp and it's kind of thin and slicey. So I don't know about steel is really, if you're at this level or above, I think we're splitting hairs.
I feel like a lot of the like higher end knives, not the ones that you actually do cutting with, but like higher end knives.
Yes.
I feel like people don't cut with them. I feel like people have them, if you're going to open a box with it, great. But that's about I may be completely wrong about this. I don't know. But it just seems to me like these like.
You got your family joining in here, your aunt-in-law. Yes, he has a brilliant mechanical mind, and I haven't even known him that long. So I'm sure Hair Lady, who is related in some fashion there, really knows the brilliance here. So I concur, Hair Lady.
Yeah, so.
I think Byron had a good question, too.
Byron's got a good question here. Hi, Dirk and Alex and Dmytro. I'll have to check out the knife. Yes, you do. Go check out my videos. Come on. Where are you at? Where you been at, man? Really great. You have excelled so quickly in 3 years of machining. Hands down. Do you have machinery equipment to make your own implants, crowns, etc. for your normal work?
So not the implants. I feel like implants, they need FDA certification, they need clearances, they need quite a bit of, things. Like if it's an implantable device, like a titanium implant would be. I haven't really looked into that deeply, but it's something that you can't just wake up and make an implant.
Got it. That makes sense.
So, but as far as crowns go, yes, crowns are made, every day. So I design them. I do, I 3D scan and design and all that, and then machine the crowns, or the lab makes the crown. But it's similar idea. It's depending on what the material is. Some crowns are 3D milled out of like unsintered zirconia, for example, and then you get, they sinter it afterwards, kind of thing. So, but the idea is the same. You design, it's CAD CAM. You design it, you mill it, and then you put it in. So crowns are not as, the machinery itself has to be sort of cleared and certified, and materials that you use.
Yeah.
But crowns is a little bit more doable. Implants, although I could probably, I don't know how I would design the internal portion of it. I haven't thought about it that deep yet, because there's usually some kind of a positioning hex on the inside. So the external threads is, more or less easy to make, but on the inside there's usually some kind of a positioner, whether it's a hex or sometimes it's a 12-sided star, sometimes it's a like an octagon. So that would be a little bit difficult to make. Maybe with like a brooch or something, you could make that. And there's like a very fine thread, something like a M1.2, M1.3, something like that. So usually, you design it. Some people that previous dentists, for example, they would design it and they would outsource it to some place in, I don't know, Israel, for example, or Korea, and they would make it for you, and something like that. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. Sadly, I'm a little familiar with crowns, having had 3 root canals in like the last 2 years. So I'm slightly familiar with those. Implants, I'm hoping I never have to figure those out. But yeah.
They're the thing now,
What's that?
Implants are like the thing now,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in the last 20 years, implants is, I do implants every day. I place my own implants, I restore my own implants, but it's a very sort of useful procedure to be able to do, and for the patients. I mean, it's something that replaces a tooth that wasn't a possibility before. It's
for sure.
I have a question, like, so how are those guys because I live in Los Angeles, right? And we're all freeways everywhere here, and there's those billboards that say implant for $3.99.
I mean, so
how do you do that in a cost-effective way? Like, what are these guys doing?
I don't know. I don't want to throw any shade on that. Right. I don't know.
So we got another question from Happy Haptics EDC. Have you watched any of John Grimsmo's videos for tips or inspiration?
I haven't really. I mean, I've seen his videos. I've seen his earlier like Tormac videos back when, because now I think he's machining with some high-end stuff. I think he has. I forgot what he has. I've seen some pretty high-end equipment in it. But I've seen some of the videos when he was on a Tormac, and I'm aware of him. But as far as videos, I wanted to not know much about knives, and I wanted to just design it my way that I thought would be the way, as opposed to sort of try to skim a little bit here and there. I wanted to sort of just from a clean slate. I literally drew it up and then brought it into Fusion and then started working from there.
Well, let's go to there. So you showed us before we started your very first knife that you ever made.
Yes.
That you still have there on the table there. Tell us a little bit about that one, because I think you started off great. and it
So-
only got better.
Yeah, it was myself and my father-in-law. We were going to Yosemite about 2 years ago, and I wanted to make a camping knife, and I figured let's make it. So this was probably one of the first few designs that I had to do in CAD and then machine it, because this was already done on the on a CNC.
Okay.
This wasn't manual. Like the bevels on it are, I don't know if you can see the bevels. I'm gonna try to.
Yeah, you CNC the bevel.
Yeah, the bevels are CNC'd here. So this was all designed in CAD and then machined. Like this is, like if you look at the scales, it's symmetric everywhere. Like it's all like it's done on the computer pretty much.
Right.
So that was
I like the
before the
blade
Yosemite
design, too.
trip.
I like the blade
Thank you.
design a lot. It almost has like a little tiny bit of a Japanese flavor to it on the tip
Yeah,
side.
like a Tanto something. I actually had a knife, and I don't know where I got it. It may have been like Boker, something like that.
Okay.
Is Boker one of the knives?
Yep.
I bought a knife like a long time ago, and it had like a Tanto style where you had this is like, I guess, close to it what a Tanto is, but it was like
Pretty much.
Yep.
it was like a similar design, and I really liked that one. And I've had it; it's been with me for like the last 10 years somewhere. I would take it like camping with me. It was like pretty robust. You could probably chop like I don't know, bamboo with it if you had to.
Okay.
But I wanted to make something on my own, and I like that style. I like that sort of profile to it. And my the other knife, this guy is. Not exactly, but it has similar flavor to it.
It does.
It does.
So
I like the recurve on it, and I also really like it. Almost kind of like has a what's that style? I don't know. It just has like that downward curve. It's got that where the Tanto meets right at the point. It's a very useful blade profile you made, which I really like.
For sure.
So yeah, and
aesthetically,
then the angle of the blade, the way that it sits, makes it more comfortable to cut with, which is what I like. Like with a Warncliffe, like this thing, for example, it's like a little bit nice, like to have a nice flat blade, but at the same time, when you're cutting, you're really only cutting with this portion right here, unless you're like trying to like put it down flat. And with like the recurves, what I have a recurve right here. Like with a recurve, you have that one point right here, which you can really dig into. And with your blade, it's even got a little bit more of a drop, which I really like, which makes it a very useful knife.
Well, so I was going for aesthetics. I was going for symmetry and aesthetics. That was my sort of primer. I wasn't so much going for practicality.
I'm there with you. I wanted
you to like sort of look at it and enjoy what you look at, kind of thing. That was the that was my design goal.
Well, you did that, but you know what? I always look at things. I have like kind of a mechanical mind too, being in the car business and things fit, and in the repair world and stuff. So first thing I look at is it going to work? And if it's pretty, like I'm okay with art knives. I have a few art knives that are just meant to be pretty, but I can appreciate function and form, just as much as I like the aesthetics. And that's one thing I noticed with that knife. I mean, you got plenty of handle purchase, on the handle as well, which you don't have to have like a massive hand or a small hand to appreciate. And it looks like something that's very neutral, which is one of my favorite things on most of my videos that I review knives. It's very rare that a non-neutral handle is something that I like. Some people pull it off pretty well, but for the most part, like I like something that's just a real handle. And I like the way you designed that as well. So I really like that.
What's a neutral handle? I don't understand what that means.
Neutral handle means it's not a whole lot of curves, just a very soft like approach to it. Nothing with like crazy, curves.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Or like huge bolsters, things like that.
The opposite of a neutral handle would be this one.
Okay.
Yeah, finger grooves, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that
This
is the
is
opposite of it.
this is the opposite of a neutral handle.
Got it.
And
Okay.
the size of this is a little bit much also.
That's quite a knife.
Yeah, it's about 13 and a half inches overall with a 5 3/4 inch blade on this guy. This is the Jeff Vandermeulen Homosaurus.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
pretty crazy. That was in my
Nice.
pocket when the RJ Martin was not in my pocket today. I have an issue. I like big knives, and I cannot lie.
nice.
Crazy.
So let's get back to your knife. Go ahead and show it off a little bit. I'm interested in that pivot design. What kind of like inspired that that open pivot design?
What inspired it is that I didn't want it to be like any other knife out there. So
You nailed that.
I wanted to design something. Again, this comes from the whole thing where I didn't want to see any designs. I wanted
Right.
to sort of just go off the wall and just start designing things. So that was the
And I think you
That was-
did. I think that's a great way to do it. And I do that a little bit too. Like if I know, whatever, Benchmade is releasing this knife and I've got one coming, I don't watch anybody else's video on that knife. I just do my own video first and then I'll go
Mhm.
watch some other people's because I don't want to be skewed by their comments in how I'm going to present the knife. So I think that's a great way to do it is just design what you think works and
Right.
go from there. And I think you nailed it.
It looks
So,
like
right,
the center. It looks like the center lock hub on a race car to me. You know, that's what that reminds me of, right?
kind of
Yes.
does. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I just wanted to sort of design something, and again, and I don't look at it as a problem that I'm introducing into my design,
Mm-hmm.
but I look at it as a feature that I can then sort of adapt and perfect and be able to introduce into my design, because
Yeah.
it does take it takes quite a bit of trial and error to. I have some tooling here. I wasn't sure how far we would go with this.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, let's go.
So every part of this needs to have, there's, you can do the first op one way, but then you have to flip it to the other side, or modification that you do, or different, before heat treat, after heat treat that you do. And so like tooling, for example, just to give you an idea, like these are plates. These are like, I use that to position,
Yep.
These large holes are for me to reference my zeros, like, the little for bearings, like to make bearings with, to make,
Wow.
to make
That's right,
make
because-
screws with.
Because guys need to understand, and anybody watching who hasn't seen my videos or anything, he makes his own bearings.
Yeah, and like this is the bearing positioner, for example. Like
Mhm.
it takes, like, just to make the tooling, it's like, you gotta figure out, and then so it takes quite a bit. Like the bearing has gone through a few renditions.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
I wasn't sure how to make, because the bearings, the way that the bearing is made, well, I actually don't know how the bearing is made, but the balls need to be captured within the I don't know how they
the cage,
manufacture,
right? Yeah.
right. I don't know how they make it on the professional level, but the
Right.
cage needs to hold the bearing. You don't just kind of put a little bit of grease on it and let the bearing
Right,
sit in there.
Got a mechanical bond.
Exactly. So how do you make it out of, a piece of titanium so that it captures that ball? And that takes quite a bit of precision there to design it,
God,
to calculate it, to
Mhm.
get, to get that spherical shape inside of that thin titanium cage. You got to machine a spherical shape so that when the ball snaps through, and it has to snap through just right.
Yes.
because you either cannot push it in at all or you fall.
It
It
just
falls
goes
out.
through. Yeah.
So the
Does it
tolerance is
have?
there.
Is there two little ledges between where the sphere kind of captures in those little bearings? The way you press, are they kind of like this when they to like a
Yes,
micro level? Is that how
it's
that's done?
this space for the bearing is pretty much a sphere that's a little bit larger than the bearing itself, with the top and the bottom cut off.
Yeah,
And the
that's
diameter at the top and the diameter at the bottom is just a little bit smaller than the diameter of the sphere of the ball bearing itself, so that you can snap it through and it captures it there. You can push it out, you can snap it out,
You can snap it
and
out. Yeah.
yeah, and probably 5-10 times, being that it's titanium, it's fairly malleable. With titanium,
Right.
you'll probably use up that bearing cage. You probably won't retain
Yeah.
the ball anymore. But once it's in, it's captive, and
Right.
it stays there. So like to machine that, for example, I had to figure out, like I'm using these. Actually, the first ones that I did, I used the dental burr. We use like round burrs in dentistry.
Yeah.
So I used that to machine. But those were the 1.5 millimeter balls. Now I've stepped it up to 2 millimeter balls,
Okay.
just to get that a little bit more surface area on the rolling surfaces.
Mm-hmm.
So those ones I machined with like a lollipop end mill. So pretty much I machined the cylinder, like the first hole,
Yeah.
and then the lollipop end mill. I think it's like a 1.5 millimeter sphere with like a 0.75, like half of that diameter is the neck.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it goes into the bore, and then it starts to kind of carve outward from within
Got it.
to make that spherical shape. And then
That's clever. Yeah, that's
and
very
then you
clever.
just so that takes practice. So I've ruined
Oh.
quite a few of them before I arrived at something that works. So
For
I love
sure,
that.
for sure. I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. So yeah, when people are, we're all impressed 4 or 5 knives in, but that's 4, 5, 10, 20 pieces to get to
Sure.
that part, if
Yeah.
not 100 pieces that you messed up, so to
Yep.
speak,
Yep.
or it just didn't work. Like WD-40, it took them 39 times to get it wrong, and then they
Right.
finally got it right.
Yep.
So similar thing. It's a lot of trial and error, and that's what makes it your craftsman that's dedicated to his hobby.
Wait, I have another question. I want to get into the lock. I like the lock on this thing. The
The
lock's
lock
really
was unique also.
Tell us a little bit about like the design lock. Show the viewers too how it kind of keys.
So
I think that's
part
clever.
of the design. I don't know if you can see it here. I could probably take it apart quick here. Part of the design for the lock, the fact that I designed the open pivot,
Mm-hmm.
it put me into a position where I could not do like what you see with like most knives, where the lock bar is like pretty wide.
Yes.
I had to keep my lock bar very narrow because I didn't want, I don't have space. I didn't have real estate there for me to design a really wide lock bar. So I had to invent a way to make it happen. So like that,
Which is a good point, that every decision you make affects everything else down the line.
exactly. So it has some grease on it right now, but I mean,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the
That is so
idea-
cool.
the idea is like that's
I know
the
it's a
lock
little bit-
bar,
Yep.
and
And it kind of puzzles into the blade. I was very fascinated by that when I got it in hand.
and the lock bar itself, because of titanium is super strong. Like I don't think I guess if you beat on the knife with something, you can probably bend it. But I mean,
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
but for the lock bar, I know you picked it up on one of your reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to, so that screw that holds the lock bar in,
Yep.
it doesn't actually carry any function there. I mean, it just positions it.
Right.
But the lock bar itself is puzzled into
it
the
puzzles into the lock bar insert, puzzles into the liner, and then
Correct.
the whole liner lock assembly puzzles into the blade.
Exactly.
So it's really
you slide it on
ingenious.
from the side. You
Yep.
slide it on from the side, and then you just stop pin it with a screw.
Right.
So, and then anytime you engage or disengage, when you press, that screw does not carry any weight whatsoever.
Right.
So when you press on it, that key between the insert and the lock bar does all of the all of the weight. So, but it was partially because I had to figure out with an open pivot, I didn't have room there for me to make like a wider area. I had to make it because I wanted to be aesthetic. I wanted to fit it within the aesthetics of what I designed. So that was the reasoning behind the lock bar.
That's really beautiful, man. I love engineering.
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, when that was one of the things when I saw Dirk's videos, because I usually I get up early in the morning, I watch a video of Dirk's once in a while. I've gotten to the point where I barely ever comment anymore because I'm super busy lately. But that video, I'm like, wait a minute. And I had to talk to Dirk. I messaged him right away. The engineering was just so cool on it. I'm like, finally something different. Like that actually was a very fun knife to look at. Just because it's just the way my mind thinks. I love neat, cool little ideas. I even have some knives in here that maybe not very expensive, but just because let's say it has maybe a scale that deploys the blade or does something weird. Like CRKT used to do a lot of weird stuff back in the day, things like that. Engineering is always what kind of got me interested, and which is why I have so many knives. But yeah,
definitely cool.
You did a great job. Great job, man. Really good.
Thank you.
I think a lot of us that have been collecting for years, we're looking for something new and different, right? Because a lot of times it's a little bit different shaped blade. They used titanium scales, carbon fiber. There's some different materials, but nothing really truly different.
Right.
And the most current different thing before yours, to me anyway, was the VC Edge interface. Jason Van Camp. Again,
yeah, I've seen his knives.
Very amazing, and I've got one right over here. Number 80 that he made, and it's all carbon fiber. This one has a titanium lock bar or Damascus lock bar, but it's carbon fiber blade with steel on the edge. And really, there's twice as much metal than what you see because it kind of goes up in and it's sandwiched between and all that, right? Traditional frame lock, so the lock bar stuff is kind of normal, but again, ingenuitive.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Super lightweight at 1.5 ounces. So this was super exciting. So I had to have one, and then I ended up with 2 and whatnot. But up until that, as we move forward, the next biggest innovative thing in my mind that I've really seen has been yours, because it's just so different. Oh, Dennis says that Jason also uses a Tormac CNC. So yeah, you and Jason, I know I saw you guys commented on one of the videos back and forth a little bit with your engineering speak. You guys would probably have a really good 2-hour conversation on the phone. I bet you, just talking stuff, which is great. Jason's a really down to earth guy. I've met him in person at the show last year and hung out, went to lunch with him and his girlfriend and all. So super cool guy, and makes, like I said, amazing knives. I actually have another one coming in tomorrow. Not mine. Wow. It's another viewers that wanted me to, film it. I'm always happy to film stuff from certain makers, most every maker really, but I like seeing Jason's work as it evolves, version. So
sure. No, he's definitely put a lot of new ideas into that knife, like the whole sandwich thing.
Thanks, Byron.
The whole carbon fiber sandwich. I think that's that's great. Again, nothing that you've seen before. So
Nope.
Yeah.
So it's super cool. And I think that, like I said, those of us that have been collecting for years are looking for something just different. So for me,
Well,
that was
yeah.
the conical.
I
That
for
was the
me,
conical bearing for me.
yeah,
the
that's
conical bearing was amazing.
super cool.
Yeah.
See, for me, if you're a knife maker, and again, this is even like more credit to you because you're technically not like a knife maker, right? Like you're a hobbyist, which is
Right.
one of the main reasons why I was like, Dirk, you got to get this guy on the podcast,
Right.
because it's crazy. Like you got all the tooling and everything, and like as you develop and all that stuff, but with knife makers, a lot of them love to show off with the type of materials they use, which, fine, whatever. It's bright, it's pretty, it's cool. But for me, if you want to show off to me, you got to show off like, look at the way this thing works. And that is where people get me, and I can actually overlook a lot of other stuff if it's mechanically clever. It's just one of the things that really interests me. So yeah, man. I mean, you knocked it out
I
of the
agree.
park.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to sort of, again, I had a blank slate in a way, and I just said, what's going to make this knife unlike any other knife out there? And, open pivot and conical bearing, to me, that right there, there's a couple of like lock bar, whatever, puzzling that was sort of a side effect of the open pivot, I guess.
Right.
But conical bearing also, like, I don't know if you guys know how, let's say, a CNC machine cuts circles, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're cutting, like making a conical surface for the bearing on the blade side of the bearing,
Okay.
you can't just CNC it with a, because when you have a circle, you have an end mill that goes in a circle, right, to cut the circle. But there's steps. The motors that drive the X and Y axes, they have a little step in them. They, it's micro.
Yeah.
So it does a little bit of a step around.
Okay.
So that was a little bit of a trick. I tried first doing it with like interpolating a circle with an end mill that goes in a circle to cut that race in the blade. And then I thought about grinding it by making like a form tool with a little grinding stone and trying to sort of grind that in so that there's no steps, which didn't really work well. So then what I ended up doing with the conical bearing, I pretty much flipped the things that spin and things that are stationary. So I made a fixture that actually holds the blade in it, that goes onto the spindle of the machine. The blade itself spins, like the actual blade is spinning.
Yes.
And there is a cutter. There's a CBN cutter, or you can do a diamond cutter also, but I use CBN tooling for that. And the CBN tooling, there's like a lathe style tool that comes from the bottom, and as the blade spins, the tool cuts that recess, cuts that conical race. So it makes it like mirror smooth, like there's like a mirror. So something like that, trying to get that to work. that was like a big deal for me to like get to that,
Well, I think it's cool too, because when you once you got your race cut out and you have that cone style bearing, and then you got to also anticipate for the gap or the empty space that the bearing's going to roll on between, the actual, because the cone itself is not going to rub on, the actual race itself. So the fact that you were able to accommodate the right amount of space up and down, which was pretty damn cool. I said, the whole thing is, it's clever.
It's hard to convey the amount of R&D that goes into it. Like, we can talk about it, but unless you're, it's hard to convey exactly, what it takes to, so.
Exactly what Jason told me. about the interfaces. The just the time and labor and wasted material to get to a working concept. He said nobody would understand. And that's, he goes, that's why the prices are where they are. Like, and Jason's a one-man band. He quit his job ultimately and just makes knives, but it's all out of his house and in his garage, and the spare bedroom is like the shipping and receiving room, and like it's taken over his whole house, right? But he goes, to get to one that actually works. And as he's making new models and prototyping different things, he came out with like a kitchen knife, and he's doing some other just designs and stuff. He goes, it's a long process. He goes, as soon as I get one ready, I'll send it to you. Like, it's going to be months, years, whatever, because it's just takes a long time to really get something that works.
It does. It's very time consuming. And it's like, my mind works in the way that if I think of something else, I have to do it.
Oh yeah.
So it's an ever evolving sort of approach to this. You know, I since we spoke last, I would love to see a video of that.
I think he's talking about the blade moving versus the tool stationary.
Sure. Yeah. Hold on a sec. Hold on.
This is cool.
Genius.
It's kind of like a 101 class on like the complexities of CNC, and I think
there's so much to it. A lot of people just as collectors and hobbyists or whatever don't really poo-poo, but we're like, oh, well, they CNC'd all of that. Well, just because you CNC all of that doesn't mean the machine
doesn't spit it out for you. When the machine doesn't,
there's a lot more to it. You can't, like, I can use AutoCAD in the building world and construction world. I use AutoCAD all the time. Just because I can draw it up in paper or on the computer screen, somebody still has to take that and then actually go and build it.
It's hard to convey to someone who doesn't do this. Like Jason probably will understand exactly what I'm saying.
He understands exactly.
So, but it's, so for example, this right here.
Normal people don't quite get it.
This right here is a fixture. Now there is a bolt here to balance the assembly. So depending on whether the blade has the graphene perforations in it, the different bolt gets put in here close. I balance it before I put it on the spindle.
Right, so it's not wobbling like a fan in your bedroom.
Exactly. And a bolt seemed like that would be the easiest way about it. So, it's a little crude, but it works perfect. So
it works.
The blade goes on here, and it sits in the spindle with the blade sort of sticking out, that way. Yeah. And this whole thing,
it's spinning.
Exactly. The whole thing starts to spin. The first few times I tried it, I put a couple of boards around it because I was like, if this thing gets loose.
You wanted to fly off through the garage door.
Right. So that was my concern. But it holds the blade.
Yeah.
And I have CBN tooling. It's like a lathe type of insert, or lathe cutter, like a bar with an insert tooling in it that sits on the table, and then as this thing spins, it cuts that whatever it cuts whatever I needed to cut. So
your father-in-law says he remembers the first time you spun the blade. He stood right behind you, held you as his shield. I'm sure. I can see it now.
But it's one of those things.
Understandably so. Again, this is not like OSHA approved. Like this is stuff that's just being done for the first time.
Exactly. You got to figure it out. You got to invent it. You got to try it. You got to test it. You got to see what it works. What works.
Because not only are you making this knife, you're making the tools to make the knife, the fixtures to hold the stuff. And you've got to figure all that out 10 steps before you actually make a knife. Like it's mind blowing if you really start to think about all of the steps to make a knife, and that goes for everybody who's making a knife, not just you, but anybody that's making knives. They go through all of these same steps, all of these same things, maybe a little bit less because they're doing some more traditional style stuff, but there's still trial and error with everybody who's making knives. It's crazy.
Yep, and it's very time consuming.
Yeah,
And
Dennis
my
says
wife,
you turned your mill into a lathe.
that's exactly what I did. Yeah, no, it's
Pretty much,
that's exactly what I did. Yeah, so I cut the recess in the race inside the blade with it. I also cut the conical race that goes on the other side of the bearing.
Okay.
The same way. So there's a holder that takes a piece of that whatever I use. I think the races are from Magna Cut or something like that. I forgot now. I have a few. It's either 440C or Magna Cut.
Okay.
And it goes into the holder, and the same thing. The same tooling cuts that.
Got it.
But
Okay.
it makes like a mirror finish where there's no steps there. There may be steps, but the steps are in a way that doesn't matter to you. The steps are not sort of, circumferential. The steps are maybe like grooves this way.
Okay.
Imperceptible, but it's like it's glass. And when, it runs smooth. Like when you run the bearing on it, it's
ready to go when it comes off of the machine.
Exactly.
You don't have to sit and do a lot of polishing or sanding.
You don't want to touch it. You don't want, like, anytime I do like acid etch to it, I mask it with like a nail polish or something, just because I do not want to touch that at all.
Once it comes off of the machine, it's ready to go surface.
Exactly.
No other touch. You touch it, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah, exactly.
We should also bring up what else he makes.
The pens and pencils.
Pens and pencils.
I mean,
and
you did really well on those two. I have a few pens. Again, I'm not like a pen connoisseur, pen collector. I guess I'm kind of a collector because I do have a dozen or so. But I was was super impressed. And here we go, Jason. You must have heard us talking about him earlier. What's he say here? Hey guys, sorry I'm late. This is Jason Van Cam. Maybe I came at a good time though. I can definitely relate. I can't even tell you how many hours, days, weeks I spent just doing CAM toolpath programming. Nice work. Yeah. Great timing, Jason. We were talking about you and how you would probably relate and understand all of the back end work that's required to get to a finished product. And I don't think a lot of the people realize that.
I have many people, we talk about like at work or even like my friends around my home when we talk about knives, and everyone's like, "Oh, when is my knife coming?"
Right.
And I'm like, it's it's hard to understand. Like, it's not, you don't just put it in the machine and it spits it out. It's not like that at all.
It doesn't even spit out the parts, and then you just have to assemble it. It's not that easy.
Well, I think the easiest way to explain is just because you start making it on the machine, you got the programming and the tooling, there's no guarantee a knife that will work will come out unless it's executed properly.
Exactly. And then you think of something else. Like, I'm not at the production level like, or like Jason even. I'm not producing masses of these, or I mean, probably not Jason, but like I don't have, so I come up with ideas all the time. Like right now, since we spoke last, Dirk, I've redesigned the blade a little bit.
Okay.
So now I know you asked about the pens and the pencil. We're gonna get there in a second.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So the blade is now a redesigned blade, and I don't know if I'm gonna put it in this line or maybe there's gonna be another line. I don't know yet.
Another line. Okay.
I there's no decisions on this yet. But for example, I want to introduce another technique or technology into knife production.
Okay.
I want to do CNC grinding. That's gonna be making this new blade. So instead of just machining it on with a normal end mill, I want to have it CNC ground, something that you would see on a surface grinder, for example, when you do it manual. You guys know what a surface grinder is?
Yep.
It's, something that, you can flatten like to thousands or 10,000ths of an inch kind of. I want the bevels, like hollow ground bevels, to be grounded with a CNC. So the new design of the blade is now, I'm working on developing the tooling, because again, you need the tooling.
You gotta, it's right. There's 10 steps to get to make a blade.
Yeah, not so much the tooling. I have to make something that's predictable in the way that I shape my grinding wheel. So the grinding wheel, you don't get them, because they wear, and you have to dress them every time.
Yes.
So I'm working on the way to make a predictable shape in the grinding wheel so that I can then put into my CAD CAM, and I can then design the tool paths so that I can grind the bevels with the ground wheel.
And Jason Van Camp says, I love seeing designs that can't be done without these more advanced machines. That's what we need to be doing. Keep pushing the limits. And Jason's an innovator in pushing the limits. And Dmytro is also following in those footsteps, not that he's following in Jason's footsteps, but being an innovator and coming up with new ways, new technologies to make things.
Right.
That's super exciting to me.
Right. So so far there's only 5 made.
Right.
Starting from 6 onward, you may see a slight redesign in the blade, especially. The other stuff I've taken into account what you mentioned about the clip. That's an easy work there. To reposition it. That shouldn't be a big deal. It's just a matter of just a quick design change.
Right.
But something like hollow ground blades with an actual, because I see a lot of the hollow ground blades that are sold, they are done, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're done on a manual, like a belt type grinder, where, side to side, it's unlikely to be symmetric if you're doing it by, I'm sure you have fixtures to sort of position it and whatever.
Right.
But
they're
I want
done
to
on
take
a surface, a belt sander. Yep.
Guaranteed. Right. So I want to take the human factor out of it, and I want to have the machine just grind the bevels for me. So I have the tool paths worked out already. I just need the tooling. So
that's crazy.
I think the old school Skahas used to do that a little bit. That's why you used to see all the machine lines. They stopped making them that way, but the North Arm Skaha guys used to try to hollow them out by using a CNC.
I haven't seen.
But that was just milled out, much like his fixed blade.
Right.
And the Norsemans and things like that. But actually grinding it out, that's different. And again, that's totally unique. And to Jason's point, I love seeing that stuff too. That's different, innovative, and maybe it's not necessary per se.
Right. It's very not necessary, I'm sure.
It's still fun and exciting for me as a collector who's collected a lot of different things. And I don't want to say I'm bored, but sort of bored with just, especially like these production people like Benchmade and Spyderco. They have their new releases. Nothing's exciting. It's a different color of a knife that you've made for 5-10 years. You use MagnaCut. Woohoo! Do something different. Go out of the box. Go out on the limb and do something that's different. I don't know.
Oh, hollow ground blades. CNC hollow ground blades.
That's hollow ground blades. I can't wait. I can't wait. Yeah. I will look at your stuff anytime. Send me anything. I'll video it. I'll send it back. I just like to share it, show it, touch it, feel it, all that stuff. Absolutely. It's cool. So Dennis says, doesn't Spyderco use robotic grinding? No idea.
Yeah.
I guess some of these big production guys, they're not having a person grind it. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. That's a good point. But CNC hollow grind. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. See how that evolves.
It's going to be a big wheel spinning that's doing the
Yeah.
bevels. So
Pretty crazy.
that's the goal. That's the goal. But
I love it. And like Jason, you know, each version that Jason's done of the interface, and I think I've seen all the variations now. Well, not variations of colors and all that, but like version 1, version 2, version 3s, they're all just a little bit better. And I'm sure with yours, if you took the first one you made and the 12th one that you make and you put them side by side, they would be different.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, number 12 would be better per se because you've evolved over making 12. Just like anything we do with repetition at anybody's day job. The first day you worked the job, whatever you produced at whatever the job was okay. But 10 years later, now you can do your job like that. So yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is to improve on every version that I make. So,
which I think is
there's always something, you know. Even the blade that I sent you, the knife that I sent you, there's things that I want to change about it, and I'm not going to tell you that.
I'm sure that every time you make something, you're like, I could do this a little different. I could do this a little faster. I could do this a little better. And same with Jason. Every time he comes out with a new version, it's to make it better, make it so that he can make it faster. And if he can cut off 5 minutes off of every single knife that he's busting out when he makes drops of 40 knives times 5 minutes, it adds up.
Sure.
Or it's saving the tools, like he's using a little bit less abrasives, or, you know, it all factors in. There's all these components. It's like a puzzle, 1,000-piece puzzle to make a knife.
The amount of end mills I've gone through with this, you know, learning what's too much, what's not too much. I have literally a box full of
broken stuff.
Carbide.
Yeah. And that stuff's not cheap. Every time you bust a tool or you wear out a tool, it costs money.
No, absolutely. And I don't even know how much money is in the broken end mills in my box already. I don't want to know.
My advice, don't ever try to add it up.
Yeah.
Just make you sick to your stomach. Just doing what you're doing and move on.
Yeah, but that's part of the game. That's what we try. But these guys right here, that's the one these are the ones that I sent you.
Yeah. Also made a pen and a mechanical pencil, which I thought was super cool. And the pen, the seam between the top part and the bottom part of the pen was just amazing to me. Because it totally disappeared. And it was totally, I mean, I knew it had to come apart to change the ink, but the seam was nowhere near where I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be down near the bottom, like more of a normal pen. And it was like midway point. I was like, oh, this is so awesome.
That is cool.
This was a manual. This was all manual. So like even like that engraving, my logo, is actually a punch. I ordered a punch, so I don't do them punched anymore. That's why it's like a little irregular, I guess.
Yeah.
But these are punched as opposed to like engraved with a machine. So, but yeah, this is something that this here is similar to what a air compressor fitting is. There's 3 ball bearings in there that kind of lock it in place, and then you release them, kind of thing.
Yep.
So, and the pencil is actually, so here, I'll take it apart because it's going to be.
The pencil was really cool too. But since I don't really use a pencil and I break the leads all the time in my mechanical pencils in school, not good for me to use mechanical pencils, but.
Well, it was a project. It was a challenge for me. So this right here is all, I mean, the spring I bought, right? This spring I bought, but that's the only thing I bought. Everything else is machined. So this is all titanium. So even the clasp.
Yeah.
Even that clasp that holds.
Yeah, because it's got like a little, like a truck and a drill, basically, to hold the actual lead.
Right. But all that's all machined on a manual lathe. So like slit
That's so
saws
cool.
used to cut the clasp, the four fingers of the clasp.
Yep.
Like that threading is a single point thread done on a lathe also, like this thread right here.
Yep.
So, but you know, it was a challenge. Again, it was like one of the projects. It wasn't knives that time, it was a pencil. So,
Yeah, which
That's
is
what I
great.
think
That's
is so
just
cool.
the craftsmanship at its finest.
That's what I think is so cool, man. It's like, I need a pencil. All right, let me make one. I need a pen. Let me make one. I want a knife.
I'm bored
Let me
this
make
weekend and I want to make something. Let me just go down to my mad scientist laboratory and let me make a tool to make a different item. Like
it's
it's
not.
cool.
Yeah. My wife, you know, she at first she thought it was cool. Now she wants more of me present, I guess.
Well,
But
you got a 1-year-old, so I
yeah,
understand. And I think that kind of like leads into that. Hey, guys, these are not for sale. Be respectful if you reach out to Dmytro on Instagram and say hi and whatever. And a lot of people have asked to be put on your list. I'm sure there is no list. I don't have one. I'm not getting one. Like, I mean,
well,
I tried to buy
like
one.
as of right now, you know, I don't know.
So
I thought about extending some kind of allocation, like open allocation to you know, I don't know how many people, but just kind of like putting it out there, and you know, I don't know.
So
So
if you did that, like you're making 12 of this particular model, and you've made 5, so there's 7 left. You would have a list filled in about a day, I'm
yeah.
sure.
Well,
And you could probably charge whatever price you wanted to charge if that were your thing. But I think it really it tells me a lot about you as a person that you're not really at the point where you want to sell them. You're, the conversations we've had on the side about, things. It's just there's a lot of honor in that of just making something. You've gifted some, your father-in-law, who may still be in the chat, has one and he spoke highly of it and things like that. It just tells me something, that you're not in it to just make a buck. You've spent thousands of dollars in tooling. Let's just call it thousands, and material. And I'm sure there's some zeros on that, but it's because you like to do stuff. And I think that's great. And so I respect a lot that, hey, I'm going to make 12 and I'm going to give them away. End of story. For me, that's good enough. It's awesome. And I'm honored that I got to handle one. And if you make some other model and you're so inclined to share with us, great. If not, that's great too. Like I've just enjoyed kind of getting to know you and whatnot. So I think, yeah, spend the time with your family, with your new, 1-year-old and all that. And just don't, like, I almost say don't make a business, because then it becomes work. Right now, it's fun.
That's exactly, like if I ever get to the point where I can take orders from people, like I thought about, for example, like now I have a couple of renditions of this knife, for example, or I have. So I thought maybe, let's say opening, I don't know, 5 spots or 3 spots, and saying from the menu, the customer can select, okay, I want, this scale, I want this, this blade, I want, honeycomb, no honeycomb, I want hollow ground, not hollow ground. And then they can just order a knife. And then I say, okay, so it's going to be maybe a month or 2 or 5 before I make it. But I don't know, like if I ever get to the point that I can actually make knives for other people, like on per order basis, it's gonna be 1 or 2. Like I'm not. I don't know. I just can't see it yet. So
And there's nothing wrong with that. And because you're not really in the knife world, so to speak, it's okay to do it that way if you wanted to go there. Like Alex just got a knife from a custom maker a couple days ago, just this week, that he ordered 3 years ago, and gave a deposit years ago. And Let me move
Is that
this.
Damascus? It looks like, yeah, it looks like Damascus, right?
It's a San Mai Damascus that he put on there, and then some copper brass fat carbon, like raindrop pattern.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, 3 years ago I got this baby.
So it's
Wow.
not uncommon for somebody to put in an order and pay a deposit and wait 6 months. 3 years is not super uncommon with some high-end makers, but with like even with Jason, he does his drops, Van Camp, VC Edge. It's going to be 3 to 6 months before you get your knife, and that's okay. Everybody kind of accepts that. They pay the
Right.
money. You got to pay to play, and then you wait. So for you, if you wanted, if you ever got to that point and you said you wanted to make 3 knives a year or something like that, people would just give you a deposit and they'd wait a year. It'd be no big deal.
Well, that's how I would see, if it gets to that point, that's how I would see it happen. You know, I don't know. I don't know how well, I guess Jason does knives pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't think I can do 40 knives. That would, you know, like,
No, I don't think so. I think
can't.
that's a little much.
can't.
That's
Yeah.
ambitious. If then it becomes a job. If you were going to do,
Yeah.
I don't know, in my mind, 1 or 2, 2 or 3 a year, maybe.
Right. That's something that I could probably consider,
Might
and
be.
I could see it work out, you know, when I have some time on the weekends, whatever.
Right.
I can, you know, kind of for fun, keeps
Right.
me going, and then, you know.
And I think people
but-
like most of the collectors understand that they're just in line. And especially like even Alex, the one he just got, that person's not a full-time knife maker. They have a job. And so 3 years is not a big deal. Like I know some other people that have waited 5, 6, 7 years for a
Wow.
custom knife.
Yeah.
Now I have searched for some knives for a couple of years and never really gotten like, hey, I place an order and I've waited 3 or 4 years. That hasn't happened to me yet. I think I'm kind of working with Red Horse Knife Works, Ed Kim. We've been talking about a Hellraiser build for at least a year, Alex? We've been talking about this last one? About a year?
No, longer than that, man.
2 years? And it's probably another year out. So it'll probably be about 3 years since we started talking about it until he gets done and
do you know the design? Do you know specs on it? Like, do you know anything about it?
Yeah.
I know what it's gonna sort of. Let me grab the one here.
Yeah, when I ordered this one, this was he makes like fixed blades and stuff like that, a little Japanese influence kind of guy too. And when I asked him what number this is, I ordered this probably 6 or 8 months after he made his first one, which was killer. His first one was really nice too. So figure in 3 years, this is number 27. So that's about how many he's made, you know?
That's not a lot. That's definitely not a lot. Yeah.
So what we're gonna make is a Hellraiser.
Okay.
So this is the first custom Hellraiser that he made. And
now, what
able-
gives it the custom status? Like, what's custom about it? Is it the materials, or is it just like, why is it custom?
Yeah, he started making this was the Black Death series, and it was really kind of the first model that he made that was hand done with zirconium bolsters, carbon fiber scales, this pearl carbon fiber, and just some different backspacers on each one of them.
So in other words, it's like hand grinding will designate it a custom exclusive use of materials you won't usually see on the other ones.
Got it.
Most people will say like it's like almost exclusively by hand. It's not always quite that simple.
And it's like one maker.
Yeah, because they have the term they call mid-tech as well, which is, you know, the guy gets a bunch of parts stamped out, sent to him. He'll assemble it himself. He'll hand grind the blade. He'll hand finish it himself. So it's like a half custom, I guess you could say, you know, and then they have the production, which is they send the design out to somebody else and somebody just makes it.
Right. So it's going to be, it's going to basically be this knife, this model with all kinds of different materials. And it's going to be the last one he's making.
Okay. That's
so he's
special.
working on the second to last now for another customer. And once he finishes that, then we'll come back to me and we'll figure out the materials, which I'm going to talk to Alex a lot about, and Ed, the maker, because I suck at picking out materials. The first thing I kind of picked out material-wise was this one from Jason. And I really just said I wanted the Damascus lock bar and 2 different kind of carbon fiber. And then Jason really ran with it himself. And we talked about some stuff, and he actually did some extra stuff I didn't expect that he didn't tell me about until I got here, so I could do the unboxing and everything. So it was a really cool experience. But yeah, the Hellraiser one will be a little bit more advanced than that, because I've got a few ideas, but again, exact colors and exact materials, not really a design fashionista. So I'm going to rely on Alex's opinion and Ed's opinion on a couple of things. And we want to make it really kind of epic and over the top, because it's the last one he's making of that model. It's totally going to be retired.
Fair. Yeah, these exotic materials are not cheap. You know, I've dabbled with that, and it's just materials alone.
Material alone is a problem, and then the tooling and the abrasives and the work to work with that exotic material oftentimes is way different. And it may take you a lot longer to grind this material than it does that material, as you know. So like it compounds, not just the raw material price, but the amount of tooling and abrasives that you're going to go through to get that as a finished thing. So yeah, the price always goes up when you get into exotic materials.
Well, yeah, and then you can get some cool materials like that carbon fiber, fat carbon doesn't make anymore. So like Landon actually has like a little bit of it left. So him and I are already talking about making like a fixed blade hump with out of W2 with a hamon, and then using that carbon fiber in the handle to make a Manuki wrap around it. So yeah, to not, the material's gone, so let's not make a waste out of it. And I liked his work so much. I'm like, let's make a fixed blade too. Why don't we? Like that should be fun, because
And if I'm not mistaken, you had that carbon fiber yourself and shipped it to him.
Yeah, I got a bunch of materials in there.
Alex, when I go to shows with Alex, it's a little different than going to shows with other friends. Because Alex, like we walk the show floor really quick and see everything, and like a buffet line, right? You want to see everything available before you start filling your plate, right? So I kind of walk around the whole show, see who's there and what all is there, and then I go back and talk to people as I go. Alex wants to go hang out at the freaking supply place with all the different steels, all the different carbon fibers, all the different Damascus pattern, like all of that stuff. I always walk right past those.
Yeah.
Until I go to the show with Alex. Then I go there and I talk to them and I look at all the stuff and I understand that, this bar of Damascus costs $300 or $500. And then I start to understand what these things cost and how they are. So it's cool.
That's another one. I bought the Damascus blade first, and I bought the old micarta. So I sent him, like, all he supplied me was the zirconium and the titanium, and I sent him the rest to make this bad boy. I like doing that. I think it's fun. Like when
Alex does that a lot.
Yeah, it's like when I work with a custom knife maker, I tell him, like, look, I don't want to like tell you what to do because you're the knife maker, but I want to get involved because I want to make the knife my knife, right? Like, and like, for example, when I hit up my buddy to make this one, he's like, well, right now all I have in stock is I have I think he had like XHP and like a couple of like regular mono steels. I'm like, well, dude, where's your Damascus? Where's your San Mai? He's like, oh, I ran out. I'm like, no problem, bro.
How big do you need? Because then you have to talk to the makers, right? It's a cool way to do it, but you got to make sure, hey, can you work with this material?
Right.
How thick does
So,
your machines go? And like you have, there's some other
well,
factors that Alex needs to take into the equation.
yeah. So I asked him like, what size billet do you want? Right. Like I'll order it in that thickness. And then because he had never done anything in razor wire Damascus and I've never seen it before, I thought it was a really cool pattern. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I ordered it, I order like from reputable people, right? Like you said,
Right.
Alpha Knife Supply is a great one. I got this one from Vegas Forge directly. That's the stuff they make. And it's AEBL and I can't remember what the other stuff it was, but it was like steel is very easy to work with. AEBL is not that hard. It's easy to heat treat. So, I just send them a billet of that. And then I found some old school vintage stuff I made some pivot colors out of, and we made this really kind of cool. They call this the Hellcat, but that's what I like.
And it's yours. It's yours.
Yeah.
That's why it's great. Yeah. So it's unlike any other one.
That's the way to ensure that you're going to get something unique is if you get involved and like, but don't be asking the maker like, hey, I need a knife made out of like kryptonite and I need it to like be radioactive and I want it to like.
You got to be realistic in what
like,
you're asking for. And just because you own the material, they may not be able to work with that material. It may not fit their thing. They may just tell you flat out, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to work with your material.
Yep.
So you have to be respectful and work with your.
The only thing that I don't know if I would be able to work is like meteorite stuff. I haven't thought about how I would grind that or how I would machine that. I don't even know if it's machinable.
It's brittle.
It's very brittle. Yep. Yeah. And then it rusts. So the key is once it's all machined and ready to go, you have to clear coat it a lot. Yeah. Like I just had one of these Hellraisers my buddy bought that he made with meteorite scales. It's beautiful. And before he put it all together, he clear coated the hell out of the scales and then screwed it together and finished done. But it's super brittle. So
I haven't worked with it. I haven't even held it in my hands, but I'd imagine something like that would be like very finicky to work with.
Well, it's got a crazy amount of iron in it. It's got a very high iron content, so it oxidizes really, really quick.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things is the finished product oxidizing. And they make watch styles out of them.
I was just going to say, I would be interested to see how the watch dial guys...
because how thin is that dial?
Yeah.
How many
you have to I think you have to grind it. I don't think you can machine it. I think you got to do like very low tool pressure type of procedures to it.
And all of the watches that have that there is a premium price for any watch with meteorite dials. Even like the Zeloses, which are kind of more affordable $1,000 watches. The ones with meteorite, if it's $1,000 watch with meteorite, it's $1,500. Like, I mean, it exponentially goes up. And then
just finding that thing
like that too,
just finding a meteorite chunk that big, like it's,
right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a market for that. Like the big thing right now is the Gibbons meteorite that a lot of people are using for watch dials, including Zelos. Like I have one with they did a red PVD over the meteorite.
That's right.
They call it the Blood Moon. It looks pretty cool, but I mean, I think natural meteorite would be fun too. Like I said, I'd love to know how they, first of all, grind it, right? Because it couldn't be like high speed or high heat. No. And then how do they?
It has to be low tool pressure. That's what I'm suspecting. It has to be very low tool pressure, like grinding.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it behaves when you machine it. I've never done it, but I would imagine like you have to go very easy on it. But who knows? But maybe that's something else to try in my knives. I don't know.
Oh, Jason made a comment about the meteorite.
Yeah, I just noticed that. So EDC for Fun says not the same, but he used to machine iron. You had to do it very, very slowly. And Jason says, I've done just a bit of meteorite, and I machined surprisingly well. Similar machining to other stainless steels. Maybe I've just been lucky so far.
Yeah, Got to try it, I guess.
Yeah, so
That's right.
it's again more of that trial and error, and then meteorite is probably not cheap, and so you're wasting it because it never works the first time. So there is some layer of waste associated with everything we make.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the
part of
not
the game.
cheap part, we're that part doesn't stop us at this point. So
No,
we
God,
try it.
we just try stuff like and
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we've kind of beat the horse. So I know it's getting late there on the East Coast, and so we'll kind of wrap it up here. Any last questions or comments from any of the viewers before we sign off here? And then when we do sign off, Dmytro, just hang on. We'll just end the live, and then the three of us will chat for a minute before we let you go. But thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for your questions and comments, and for watching. And
thanks for watching, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
I think you should make a knife out of dragon Damascus.
I don't even know what that is. What's dragon Damascus?
Oh my God, you never seen that?
The dragon skin? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yep. Let me see if I have.
Is it steel? We're talking about steel?
He is my hero.
Yes, it's I think kind of like crush ball bearings is the way he does it. He doesn't give out his secret though. It's a guy in South Africa. Birdie Redville is his name. Oh, it's this one. And a lot of people like to use it because using like a salt process, you can get some really bright colors out of it. There's also Galaxy Damascus, which is kind of the same thing, but people black it out. But this is what it looks like.
Hold on. This is steel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. That looks beautiful.
And it's kind of like, I think it is kind of crushed ball bearings.
And what's the processing on it? Why is it blue?
It's like a salt type chemical process. I'm not 100% sure. I asked the guy who made this knife for me kind of how he does it. He says it's like some salt and chemical process. I'm sure somebody will know better than I do. But,
that looks awesome. That looks great.
Yeah,
hey, thanks,
if you
Dave.
made a blade out of that aspirated, that would look nuts. That would look crazy.
Sky's the limit.
Dave's another one who probably geeked out on our conversation because Dave is a machinist by trade for,
that's right,
I don't know, 20, 30 freaking forever years. And he's gotten into knives, and he's not making knives, but he's just a machinist doing machinist stuff out in the real world. Mm-hmm. But he's gotten into knives. He has a small YouTube channel as well and stuff like that. So I'm sure he related to a lot of the trial and error and making a tool to make a tool to make a thing. So, and then Jason, the final comment here. I love seeing your enthusiasm, Dmytro. Try not to get dragged in before you're ready. Good luck refining your design and keep having fun. And really, that's it. Just because you've gotten some attention, for lack of better words, now don't jump into opening books and making a list and selling. Like, do what you want to do. Don't let people bugging you dictate anything. And keep it fun. Jason really, I think, nailed it. Keep having fun. That's how Alex and I like to do this channel. It's very small. It's not growing and whatever. We don't care. Alex and I are just friends. We like to get together and chat. And so we can just kind of share it with the world. Who cares? And same with my normal channel. I have a day job. I'm not quitting my day job. I'm not making YouTube a full-time thing because then that'd be work. Right, and I've slowed down posting videos. I still do one video a day, but I used to do 2 a day. And I'm like, partially it was out of necessity. I was moving and packing. So I just didn't want to do 2 a day because I was busy. And now I'm just kind of like, 1 a day is fine. If the channel slows down a little bit, the channel slows down a little bit. I don't really care because I have a job.
Doing 1 a month. I'm doing like 1 a month right now.
Right? Oh, Rob, you just Rob, I told you 5 o'clock. That was 5 o'clock Pacific time, but Rob is a good friend of mine in Utah. So
But it is, like you said, it is about having fun. It's not,
It's about
it's
having
not the
fun.
same. It's not the same if you have to do it. It's
Right.
different
Right.
if you want to do it. So
So just keep
And-
having fun with it. And if at some point in the future you want to start selling, then start selling. And if you never do, then never do.
yeah. Well,
do
there's gonna be some things coming out of my garage. So to whatever extent, I don't know, but there's gonna be, there's always gonna be something happening. So
Absolutely. So
I
keep
can't
in
wait to
touch
see.
for sure. And we appreciate your time, and all of you viewers. Thank you for your comments and questions. And Rob, go back and watch it live, replay. It's fine. Give you a
thanks
shit.
for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks a lot. And
Thank you.
Alex and I will be back in a couple of weeks with or without a guest. I don't know. We kind of figured out about a week before. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time. Any last comments, Alex?
Well, big thanks for coming out here. Like I said, I was very excited to have you. Again, like everybody told you, have fun with it. But hey, if you feel the need and like sparks are flying out of your garage and mad scientist potions and things are happening, man, keep it coming, and please show us what you're up to, because I definitely love to see what comes out next. So good job with everything, and thanks again for sharing your time.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone.